This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore! Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the WWE Podcast for this Monday Night Raw review on this Tuesday, October 17th, 2023. Let's get to the Monday Night Raw review because it was eventful. I don't think it felt as big as SmackDown did. SmackDown seems to be the go-to place for the big stars, and it wasn't that long ago that SmackDown was the forgotten child of WWE, and Raw was clearly the flagship. But boy, have the days changed and times have changed when it comes to SmackDown. Because if you didn't know, you heard about four different stars say that it's the Raw premiere. Not only did we get it from the open of the show to Seth Rollins, of course the announcers and graphics everywhere. This might have been the most I can remember that WWE has pushed this being a season premiere. Like they want to play along too with the season premiere gimmick with all the other TV shows that actually have season finales and actually have season premieres. But sure, let's play along. And again, I'm not a fan of the wrestlers knowing or caring that it's the season premiere. That shouldn't even be anything out of their mouths. Yes, it's awful that you hear it somebody opens Raw, they welcome you to Raw. All the storylines go by the wayside. Front and center and priority is making sure everyone knows that they're welcome to Monday Night Raw. And then, of course, when it's the season premiere like it was this week, everyone has to mention it. The wrestlers shouldn't give a damn about that. That's something that you hear from the announcers and management, right? It may be a GM is backstage and saying, well, it's the Raw premiere, let's make this a big show. That's fine. But the wrestlers shouldn't address it directly, or even, again, they shouldn't care. They should care about what's going on in their story, what's going on with their title chases, and what's going on with their ascent to the top. Not that it's the Raw premiere. It was egregiously oversold, and it felt like a bad spinoff from Thursday or Friday night of SmackDown, because the star power here was nowhere near what it was on Friday night. And if you're from Oklahoma City, you're probably thinking to yourself, damn it, why didn't I go to Tulsa? Right. But that doesn't mean this was a bad show. In fact, I enjoyed it for the most part. I really thought that there was some progressions of stories that went in the right direction. You had some questionable logic from Sami Zayn. I'll get into that in a minute, that I will take exception to. Not because it's Sami's fault, but because they're protecting a certain someone. And I'll talk about that again in the very open of in the next topic of the show as I complete my open here, and just let you know that this is the WWE Podcast, if you didn't already guess, and we have ad-free experiences for you waiting at Patreon. There's going to be a community chat opening up on Patreon. It's not Discord. It's like an internal community chat where you guys can have direct access to one another and to me. And that'll be rolling out to patrons only very soon. And tomorrow's the mailbag. We'll get priority placement in the mailbag as emails continue to flood in. I'm going to try not to do a two-part like I did last week, but if that's the only way I can get everyone in, it's the only way I can get everyone in. But the mailbag night, I try to keep it to 1 hour because it gets a little bit much after that for me and my schedule personally. So, but don't fear. I will get to it whether it's part 2 or in a future show. So, all right. So, Sami Zayn opened the show. Big reaction. He's talking about how it felt weird that he's alone. And he was surrounded by the bloodline, or rather the bloodline, the Judgment Day. Judgment Day surrounds him at the open of Raw, and then you have Jey Uso coming out to make the save. The Judgment Day backs down after Jey handed Sami a chair to defend himself. And then Sami somewhat rejects Jey. And says he just needs space and that it's all on Jay, that if it wasn't for him, that Kevin Owens would still be here. And that's not how things played out, WWE. And I think people are smart enough to realize this. And it's a bit infuriating because it was only, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that Jey Uso was brought back to WWE and specifically brought back to Raw in a trade. Because remember, he had quit WWE after super kicking his brother in the Bloodline Civil War ending, and he came to Raw after quote-unquote returning. And that was due to Cody Rhodes cashing in his, quote, political chips to bring Jay to Raw, and it's the right thing to do because Cody is just obsessed with the right thing to do because he's our moral compass. He's our moral overlord, telling us what people should and shouldn't do from a moral standpoint and what's right and what's wrong, and that people deserve second chances and all that. So that's what happened. Okay, those are facts. That's not speculation. It's not interpreting anything. It's directly from Cody Rhodes himself, who claims 100% responsibility for Jay coming to Raw. And then at some point, SmackDown was going to get a trade in kind. We didn't know who that was. We were speculating. We thought they forgot at times. And then it ended up being Kevin Owens, who debuted on SmackDown last week. Now, the biggest problem I have, as you'd imagine, is that they're trying to protect Cody Rhodes here. Because Sami blaming Jay makes no sense. Unless Sami completely missed that episode of Raw, or the subsequent ones when it was mentioned several times, in which Cody himself and others claim that he was 100% responsible for this trade, how is it Jay's fault again? Jay just decided to, let me get away from the bloodline. I want a fresh start. If Cody can bring me over, great. And he did. But that's Cody's doing. So Sami, take it up with Cody. That's like getting mad at management. Or rather, that's like getting mad at somebody for being drafted to your show. Like say Sami Zayn had a problem with Gunther. And he's like, if it wasn't for you, I would have my Intercontinental Championship around my shoulder and you wouldn't. Because you were drafted here. Well, that's not the fault of Gunther. Take it up with management. Again, it's you're misdirecting your anger, but they're doing this on purpose because they want you to forget that Cody Rhodes is the one responsible for Kevin Owens moving, not Jay. Jay had nothing to do with who was being traded in kind to SmackDown on top of it. So this is like 2 layers of wrong and 2 layers of insults from a fan's perspective that wants to be respected by WWE, okay? And that's what I take this as. It's a protection for Cody and trying to divert the attention onto Jay being the reason that Kevin's not there. Jay has nothing to do with it. Nothing. Zero. Jay wasn't lobbying to come back and say, I want to be coming to Raw. And then, and when I come there, make sure that you trade Kevin back to SmackDown. I don't want him here. No. Again, it's double wrong because Cody and brought Jay back to WWE and brought him to Raw, knowing full well there would be a subsequent trade. And then Jay also had nothing to do with that trade in part 2. So this, I know I'm diving a little deeper than probably most people thought or want me to do this in this particular Raw review, but it's one that I think was egregious and one that I think was nothing more than protecting the golden boy, Mr. $1 Million bleach blonde NSYNC 2000 haircut. That would be Mr. Cody Rhodes. I mean, does he not look like Justin Timberlake from 2000 in a music video on TRL with like Carson Daly? Tell me he doesn't. I mean, that hairstyle went out about 20 years ago. And granted, he can pull it off. But I guess that's also me as a Cody hater, as a babyface. That said. All right. Now, what I did like. Here's some things I did like. Number 1, Drew McIntyre. And his reasons for doing things. And the reasons he is the way that he is right now. Drew proclaiming that he was the guy that stepped up during the pandemic and carried the company on his back, beat Brock Lesnar in 5 minutes in front of no one, and then also had a perfect time, a second chance to have that moment finally in front of fans in his home area, not his hometown, but his area overseas at Clash at the Castle last year, when Drew could have been the one to topple Roman Reigns. And what happened, of course, the bloodline interfered. Roman retained, and it was a second opportunity for Drew. You fast forward, now he has part 3, and he has a third chance to defeat Seth Rollins and climb the mountain. Now, it's not the same championship he's chasing, but nonetheless, it's still a world title, and arguably it's the second most important title in the company. Fine. But that to me makes sense that he's a bit bitter over still what happened. And you know what? I kind of would be too. Those opportunities come few, far between. Some in their careers, it never happens. And for Drew not letting go of this, I think it's logical. And him being told to just get over it is, it reminded me of, remember back in the I think it was, when we had Shawn Michaels tell Vince McMahon to move on from Bret Hart. And that actually, I think it was leading to WrestleMania 23. I think it was WrestleMania 23 when Shawn Michaels faced off against Vince McMahon. But that all started when Bret Hart returned to WWE, buried the hatchet with Shawn Michaels on air, and then Vince McMahon kicked Bret Hart in the nuts. And the following Raw, we had, or it might have been the same Raw. Forgive me, it's been 20 years. But Shawn Michaels told Vince to move on, and that was the catalyst. Those words were the catalyst for the match that Vince McMahon and Shawn Michaels would then have at WrestleMania. So it reminded me a little bit about that. I know that it's not exact, and the circumstances are a little different, but those words rang in my brain as Drew was being told to get over it. Drew, I think, is kind of justified here. I mean, there is a very good chance as we look towards Crown Jewel. I think more than just a good chance, but a maybe a great chance. Put your percentages on whatever that means to you, that Drew does take the belt from Seth. And honestly, I don't know if I would really be that sad. Seth is a good champion. He is a little bit strange in the fact that when he's not champion, we complain he's not. And then when he is, we don't want the belt on him. He does have that bit of a unique factor to him. And I think that when we look back at this run from May to presumably November, if it ends there, that's what, a 6-month run, almost a 6-month run. That's solid. It's very solid in today's day and age. If you put Roman Reigns out of the equation, it's a longer title run. And I think he brought back and established respect in that championship, even with all his antics and his sing-alongs that went way too far. All of it, I think, has translated to a belt that they created out of thin air, decided with no explanation and mind-bogglingly not to remind us of the lineage of the world title and pretend it was just one they just invented, which is a big mistake and makes no sense. But they still did a nice job of adding value to it, given the guy that was holding it, how often he defended it, that kind of thing. Even though they did go overboard with that kind of stuff, it did ultimately, I think, accomplish the goal that it set out to do, which is add value to this championship and make it feel important and make it visible. That's what they did here. So I won't have a problem at all if Drew is the one to win the belt. In fact, I think he's the favorite in my mind to win the belt from Seth and do something that, you know, kind of really puts him firmly in the heel lane at Crown Jewel. Whether he takes advantage of a situation he otherwise wouldn't have, like he did in a couple of his other matches several weeks ago, with his opponents being distracted, that kind of thing, or he outright low blows Seth, whatever. I think this will finally place Drew in the heel category with a championship victory at Crown Jewel. So I like this logic so far, though. This is a fun story that's being told with Drew, because it's really shades of gray for Drew right now. You don't know where they're landing, but you're pretty sure they're headed heel. They're headed heel. They just are taking a little longer to get there than some people would otherwise like. Now, the other topic, the major topic coming out of the show, is the title change. What major title change am I talking about? Well, of course, the tag team championships. Now, when this happened, I was very surprised, because I was the first one to sit there and say, hey, this title victory is a way to get Jimmy and Jay on SmackDown without having to violate the brand rules, pretending those are enforced, right? That is what I thought it was. And I said, they'll probably hold it for a couple of months and drop them and then go into the Rumble season separately. And then they'll be off to the races into WrestleMania season with their respective programs. But no. Not even a month into their title reign, a couple of weeks even, they dropped the belts. And they dropped them back to the Judgment Day. Now, this happened just recently also with the NXT title with Wes Lee, and lost it and then regained it like a week later. And now the tag titles are following similar in suit. This is a very rare move. It's almost like they are correcting course. It feels like that. It feels like they're kind of correcting course, or they saw this coming, designed it several weeks or months in advance, and said that this is what's going to happen and why. Now, why would WWE do this? I don't know. It seems to me that they are going into a Jimmy J solo program. Actually, I shouldn't have said that, because that would imply Solo Sikoa. I would say a Jimmy J one-on-one match, and sooner than we thought. I still don't really want to see this. I'm over the Civil War stuff. Okay, fine. Jimmy was there to screw Jay. Whatever. I have said, because I'm the authority on such things, that we are over the bloodlines in intra family issues. Civil War stuff can be put aside for the time being. It's more than delivered on its promise, and it's been fun, but we got burned out of it, and that happens. That's just the normal course of things. But now it's been reignited. The corpse of the Civil War that no one wants reignited has been reignited with the Jimmy interference costing Jay. Now Jay's going to be looking for revenge, but now he can't come to SmackDown because he doesn't have the belts, even though he will, because look what Jimmy did this week. Security wasn't even on him at all. Security should be on anyone that doesn't belong there. If you are not assigned to the brand that you were drafted, or if you show up on a brand you were not assigned to at the draft, you should be escorted out. Full stop, as they say. That's it. And no security was following Jay, chasing Jay. Nobody did that. So it looks like Jimmy and Jay are going to be on a collision course, probably at Crown Jewel. And Cody is going to be off to Gunther. I don't know. Cody's a bit of a lost entity right now. He could go to Roman. Hell, it could be a fatal or a triple threat with LA Knight, Cody, and Roman at Crown Jewel. It could be. I don't think that they'll do that, because they're saving Cody for a one-on-one rematch. But I don't know what the purpose of this was, other than, if this was all for just getting to Jimmy and Jay against one another, if that's the sole purpose, or at least the main focal point of this decision, bad move. Bad move. There's really not any, I think, genuine interest in Jimmy versus Jay. No one seems to get really excited about that right now. Not that they couldn't down the line, but right now, people are done with this storyline with the whole, as I said, Civil War stuff. It's time for people like LA Knight to move into front and center and challenge Roman, which I would imagine if it'll become official this Friday night with the match of LA Knight versus Roman for the undisputed title. And it should be. So this was a surprising turn. Now it does put the belts back on the Judgment Day. Great. They're holding a lot of gold, not all the gold. They're still missing the IC and world title on Raw. So their claim about all gold is laughable, but I understand the psychology behind it. It's still a fun visual. They're a hot group. Right now, you could argue they're hotter than the Bloodline. For the first time, there's a question for you guys. For the first time, do you think at this very moment that the Judgment Day is hotter and more interesting as a story than the Bloodline? The Bloodline, in my opinion, has been overtaken by the Judgment Day. Mommy being the official leader, even though we were told there was no leader. Triple H even said that at a press conference, post-show press conference a couple of months ago. That's what's different about Judgment Day. You don't really know who the leader is. Well, no, Rhea then several weeks later established herself as a leader. So that differentiates, that differential between the Judgment Day and the Bloodline is gone because they now have a leader. But then strangely, I think, was it Wade Barrett who said that they don't have a leader? It's like, Rhea just said she's the leader. Like, what? They have a leader. Okay, it's Rhea Ripley, and she does well. Rhea Ripley, I think, does very well in her role. Her growing her hair back out is also a nice touch. I don't know if she's trying to mimic Dom or if she's just ready for a change. Either way, I like it. Makes her look more feminine, but I know she's still a badass, so it's kind of like the best of both worlds in my mind. So, it's going to be right now Judgment Day in like 8 segments on Raw, and I have no problem with that as long as this group doesn't hold any more gold. I don't need them capturing the IC. I don't need them capturing the world, although there is still Mr. Senor Money in the Bank who's looming. So keep that in mind. It's very possible that Mr. Money in the Bank cashes in at, say, Crown Jewel and takes Drew's moment. It's possible. Keep that in the back of your mind. Other than that, we got a Nia Jax interference between Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley. And Shayna Baszler and Rhea Ripley, I really enjoyed, more than I thought I would, given it was a very cold match. I really enjoyed it. I also would like Shayna Baszler to get rid of the gi, the karate gi. I don't want to be Ronda Rousey match that you had, because that's what it reminds me of, and those aren't good memories. So that's a callback for me that I don't want to relive. But she can do what she wants. I still like the traditional gear that Shayna Baszler has, and but that's the other thing too. I want Shayna Baszler to have a voice. I think that's also partly what's missing from her in the connection with the crowd is we don't get a time to hear from her. She is definitely different looking. She's not the supermodel, the beauty queen. She's just a tough, rugged former MMA fighter. And that's, I think, partly her appeal. So her against Rhea Ripley was a lot of fun. Now, we did get a no contest here as Nia Jax interfered, Zoe Stark interfered, and it was really all the heels, which was kind of a weird segment here because now Nia Jax, I think, did her part. She got legitimate heat too because, as I said, she is the go away, I don't want to even see you, I don't care, just move out of my face type of heat. And Zoe Stark kind of got the mixed, I don't know what you are, you were a heel, but then Trish turned on you, so you retaliated against Trish, so that kind of makes you a baby face. You got squashed by Nia Jax a couple weeks ago. We don't know what this means. Raquel Rodriguez is in the same boat. You could say that she was the only babyface out there, but listen to the reaction she gets, guys. Raquel Rodriguez gets an indifferent reaction because the fans look at her and go, she's miscast. It's not that Raquel doesn't have the look. It's not that Raquel Rodriguez can't go in the ring. It's not that she doesn't have the it factor. She's miscast. But with how many heels they have in the women's roster right now, on the Raw side especially, they probably will keep her this on paper babyface, and the crowd will continue to mildly support her from time to time. I wouldn't be too worried if I were WWE, though, going, well, they're not even making any noise. Because that's WWE. Listen, that's the fans telling you she's miscast. She belongs a heel. So, but it was interesting, though. In this whole segment, Zoe Stark is the one that stands tall, which is fine. You're trying to build stars and that kind of thing. So fine. I think it's something worth noting for Zoe Stark fans out there. And this leads me to believe it's going to be a fatal 5-way of sorts, fatal 5-way elimination maybe for Rhea's women's world title at Crown Jewel. Again, speculative match, nothing confirmed yet. So, all right, let's talk about Becky Lynch and her interaction with Jade Cargill, because Indy Hartwell, I guess, is going to be facing her. Xia Li came up and said, well, I want to be third in line. I forget who the second person was. And Becky said, fine. And then Jade Cargill appears, just like she did on SmackDown to come face-to-face with Charlotte. She came face-to-face with Becky. And that was a fun interaction, brief as it's been. And she told Jade to get in line. That was nice. I think Jade, as I've said, I'm excited that she's here. She certainly has the look that WWE drools over. And I'm just concerned, though, that if they want to make her and keep her a babyface, that it's going to be difficult to do long term, meaning like beyond a month or two. After the fun, nostalgic feel, or rather the shock and awe and the and the newness wears off, and the fans look at her and go, why are we cheering for her outside of, oh, she's new? Well, okay, she's new. How does that qualify her to be somebody that you support? So I think that eventually needs to be worked out, because after that newness and shock value wears off, you're left with just who she is. And who she is right now, if you look at her, is a monstrous, muscular woman. And I mean monstrous in the way that she is a freak of nature. And she's also got beauty and brains. And at the same time, she's got an arrogance about her. And when you have somebody that looks like they're, carved out of stone on the women's side, man, it's going to be difficult to keep her a baby face, because how can you feel sympathy for somebody that looks like that's dominant? So they're going to have their work cut out for them if they want to keep Jade Cargill a babyface long term. All right. So Bronson Reed and Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Better match than I thought. Longer match than I thought. The chops, as always. I mean, he's essentially creating internal bleeding. That's what that is. Every time they show a swollen chest or a purple chest, he's essentially causing internal bleeding with, just that's what it is. So this match was physical. It was what it needed to be, though. I called this to be a short match, and it was longer than I thought, which, as I watched it go on, made total sense to me. Because he is a rising star. And you don't want to have Gunther, as dominant as he is, just kind of run through Bronson Reed, who they have, kind of started and stopped over the last year. And it made sense. You want to have him make an impact, but he's not quite ready for the main event yet. And I think he did a really nice job. I liked what I saw from him. The powerbomb finish is nice from Gunther. Getting the victory without help, that's also important, especially if they are really going to build him for Brock Lesnar at this WrestleMania. You can't have him use all of his cronies to get the victory. You need to have him stand on his own 2 feet more often than not. So, I really thought this was a fun match, one that you saw the outcome, a mile away. So we're ready to see what can Bronson Reed do with the biggest match of his career. And the answer is he delivered. He delivered. He won in a loss. And that's all you can ask. So Gunther retains his championship. He also had his own promo during Raw, like Ludwig Kaiser had last week. We had this week a promo for Gunther, specifically the ring general, which I really liked. So one other thing, and as I'm mentioning it, Drew McIntyre talking to Rhea Ripley backstage last week. What would I make of it? Possible heel turn or a red herring? It's one of the two. Is it a red herring that WWE is putting out there of trying to tease that he's turning heel and joining the Judgment Day, or the Judgment Day is going to help him in a deal of sorts? It's possible where they help Drew win, but then they also, they help Damian cash in, and then the first opponent Damian Priest has is Drew McIntyre. Perhaps that's the road they're taking. So we'll see down the line if that conversation with Rhea Ripley that was spotted by Seth last week goes anywhere or not. All right. So what else? The Shinsuke Nakamura match with Ricochet. Match of the night. Even more than the tag team match. More than any. It was a joy to watch this. Now, I'm sticking by my guns, and my opinions of Ricochet have not changed from the perspective that he is a one-dimensional character in terms of crowd connection. I'm not saying he's one-dimensional in terms of his in-ring ability, of course not. Or even his personality backstage, which we've seen various, iterations of at times. I think by far he was at his best during the Logan Paul segment a few months ago. But largely, Ricochet has been a one-trick pony of just being flashy in the ring, but no real heartfelt connection with the crowd, largely. And that still is the case after this match, but it also created sympathy for Ricochet, more than usual in a loss. He also won in a loss, putting up a hell of a fight with Shinsuke. Shinsuke continuing his backstage subtitled promos. This one was shorter, and I like that. That's fine. Everything doesn't need to be 4 minutes in length with his promos. But they know that they found a formula that works. They know the perception from the crowd on those promos was very positive, so they're going to continue with it, and I don't blame them. I think it's very effective. I mean, Shinsuke Nakamura has been rebirthed. He may be hotter now and a bigger star now than he was even with the AJ Styles match at WrestleMania several years ago. So that said, this match was just unbelievably brutal, and almost unnecessarily so for a Monday Night Raw with Falls Count Anywhere. And having Ricochet do the things he did with the the moonsaults and diving and flipping off, into the crowd, and the table bumps, all that kind of thing. Hats off to Shinsuke, hats off to Ricochet. Unbelievable job by both men. This I could see actually continuing through Crown Jewel. If they want to go that far, they could bring themselves to Crown Jewel and have a hell of a match. They could. I'm not saying it will happen, but it's possible right now, given that Ricochet, he did lose to Shinsuke. And WWE, the announcers were trying to frame Shinsuke as more vicious and violent. Well, that's what the match calls for. If you don't do that, you're not actually trying to win the match. Wouldn't you try to do anything you could to beat your opponent? I'm not trying to undercut what the announcers were doing. I know that the story they're trying to sell is that he's more evil and diabolical and violent and calculating. They can use all the vocabulary they want to try to make you change your opinions on how he works in the ring. He's essentially the same. And if he didn't do those things to beat his opponent, he'd be stupid. That's how you win that match, a Falls Count Anywhere, is by being violent, by being diabolical, by being calculating. That's how you win. But if it was the reverse and Ricochet won, they would have said, what a gutsy performance by Ricochet, showing his toughness. So see how it spins? If Shinsuke wins, he's diabolical and he's vicious. If Ricochet had won, that's courageous, it's toughness, it's gamesmanship. Right? I'm not revealing anything you guys don't know, but that's how the game is played if you're new to the product. And the story that they're telling is, the utmost importance, because that's what they're going to use to continue trying to tell whatever they are, trying to tell whatever they're trying to tell. So anyway, match of the night, Ricochet and Shinsuke. Hats off to both men who just absolutely killed it. All right. We also got Natalya versus Piper Niven, where Piper Niven beat Natalya in 6 minutes and 25 seconds. And that was the finish was that Niven threw a distracted Natalya to the mat and then hit a crossbody block and pinned her. And then after the match, Niven and Green attacked Natalya. Tegan Knox ran out, cleared Green from the ring, and Natalya and Knox doubled down on Niven, who held the ropes and escaped before they could hit her with a move that they were trying to set her up for. So, what else happened here? We got Bad Bunny being congratulated on being the most streamed album in a single day on Spotify. Whatever. But they got a hell of a relationship with Bad Bunny. So they're, scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing. Rightfully so. Now, I'm trying to see what I missed. Oh, Johnny Gargano versus Ludwig Kaiser. This match was 10 minutes, so they got more time than I could have imagined them getting here. I think a lot of this has to do with the 3 hours. And Ludwig beat Johnny Gargano in 10 minutes. And it was because Gargano rolled to ringside. He slammed Vinci's head on the broadcast table, and then Vinci entered the ring to escape. And Gargano followed Vinci and was dropkicked by Kaiser with a Kaiser kick. And then Kaiser hit the DDT and got the victory. So this really was because of Vinci that Gargano lost. And you would imagine that Ciampa and Gargano are going to reunite sometime soon here. It seems to be what they're setting up for. Alrighty. I already talked about the women's world, or the women's match here. And I think does that do it? That might do it. I think I've covered all the actual matches. But here's the thing. We did, and we're going to have the Veer Mahan report tomorrow at the mailbag. Jinder Mahal was actually on Raw with Veer Mahan and Sangha, and Mahal told Pierce that they wanted to talk. So, brief, but if you're looking for the Indashir to make a return, hey, what better time than right before they go to Saudi Arabia to be able to do that? Now, I've had people say that, we're concerned about the Saudi Arabia event with everything going on in Israel. I haven't heard anything to the contrary that the event is not happening. It's going forth as expected. I'm sure security, though, will be at an all-time high in Saudi Arabia. Not that there's any imminent threats, but it's the world we live in now with the absolute just awful acts of violence that's going on in Gaza and everything else. But the event itself seems like it's going on as scheduled. And so that's that. Now, the other thing I want to bring up, a little bit off topic, but important. I've had people tell me, well, Roman Reigns defends his belt, his title belt at house shows. How can you say he's not a defending champion too? When is the last time anyone counted house shows for anything in terms of storyline on TV? That's what matters. I don't care what happens at a house show. They call it a house show for a reason, meaning it's only for the house. It's only for the arena and the people that are there. It is not for any of the televised audience, which means the people at home don't see it, don't care. It's irrelevant to the story. It's in its own vacuum, its own bubble. So I don't care if Roman is defending his belt 5 nights a week at house shows. Doesn't matter to me. If it didn't happen on TV, it didn't happen. I'm not going to get into the, well, he defended it at a house show. I mean, house show. Here's the thing. Not only is it that if it didn't happen on TV, it didn't happen. True. But also, there is a negative chance that a title changes hands, especially with Roman's style or Roman's caliber and where he's at now, that Roman drops a belt at a house show. Could you imagine? Could you absolutely imagine Roman Reigns dropping his belt at a house show? I don't care if it's in Madison Square Garden. Just imagine that. So the idea that those somehow count is ridiculous, because a house show, think about the definition of what a house show means. House, specific arena, those people in that town only. Not conducive to any storyline progression at all for anything. Now, you'll have a rogue moment every few years where there's a massive turn in something, or occasionally you get a title change, like an Intercontinental US title change. I don't even know the last time that a major title like the WWE or World title or Undisputed at this point was changed on a house show. I don't even know. That's probably a good trivia question. But the last thing I can remember that happened at a house show that was untelevised was in Madison Square Garden when Roman Reigns attacked Brock Lesnar, heading into their match at SummerSlam and WrestleMania and all that kind of thing. So that's the last thing I can remember, and they made a big deal about that. But that's Madison Square Garden. It's two masks heading into their program, but very rarely is our house shows used for storyline progression. So I want to make that point very clear. All right, so we got we did get appearances from Kofi and Xavier, and they were doing Maxine led Otis through a Pilates workout, and of course kind of just comedic stuff. And I think that might do it here. Again, we talked about the tag team title match. Very very just kind of puzzling that they had such a short run with tag titles, but they clearly have better and bigger plans for both individuals. There is a reason that they did not have them, hold those belts for as long as probably most people think they should have. And I don't know what it means now to get Roman and Cody one-on-one. I mean, you could just do what Jay did and just literally walk in, go through the crowd, attack, leave. That's very possible. That's what they've done here with Jimmy and Jay. So if you're looking for a Cody Rhodes Roman Reigns Part 2, it could happen at Survivor Series. Perhaps it's Team Cody versus Team Roman, right? Many people's worst fear. But don't forget, guys, Cody Rhodes is here to put a smile on our face. He's here to make us feel happy. He's here to elevate our moods. So thank God for Cody. And if he didn't tell me that, I wouldn't know what he's there for. So, thank God for him. All right. I know you guys are sick of me bashing Cody, but hey, it's my show. I can bash him as much as I want, right? I know. You guys are tired of it. And I'm tired of bashing on him too. But the thing is with Cody, he's ultra talented. He is. Well, how can you say he's ultra talented and bash him? I'm bashing his character. He's miscast. He belongs a heel. He's a patronizing, arrogant, wishy-washy, well, not wishy-washy, to feel like a just goody two-shoes politician kissing babies and all that. That's just, I get an icky feeling from him as a babyface. But in ring, he's brilliant. On the microphone, he's really good. And, I have nothing but respect. I do respect Cody Rhodes. It's just the character, that's all. But, well, that'll do it for me tonight on the Raw Review. I thank everybody for listening, and you guys can check us out at Patreon with so many exclusives. I will be putting up, I said last night I will be, but by the time you listen to this, I'm going to try to get up, the part 1, at least, of the Wrestle Magic show that is going to be with Just Incredible and our Wrestle Magic crew that haven't been on the show in a while, so it's good to see them back. And they will be posting their show, or I will be, tomorrow morning, which is Wednesday morning. And there's will be subsequent parts to that. Now, not every part is going to be on the free feed. There are some non-PG parts that could end up on Patreon only. So it's a good time to be a patron, is really what I'm saying. A lot of new benefits coming. As I said, community chats, extra video, exclusive After Dark, a part 2 of the Wrestle Magic show that's coming in the next couple of days for you, the patrons only. So anyway, that'll do it for me tonight, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow with the mailbag. Send your questions in, and I will talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.